Great Debaters Contest is brought to you by Safaricom M-Pesa.
We're at the home of the Safaricom Prince Louis 7th. This is the Nakuru region for the Great Debaters Contest. Austin Nyambok.
And I am Mariam Bishar. We have previous champions Utumishi Boys Academy going versus the lovely ladies of Nakuru High School, and they're debating on the environment. Should industries be penalized for environmental decay through taxes? We'll have the first proposer take the stage. You have 3 minutes.
By general introduction, I would say that this is imposing punishment on goods and service producers due to their harmful effects on the surroundings of man, animals, and plants. To drive the point a little bit home, I'll use the analogy of chemistry, which I think may help. For example, let's react industries with the environment. What do you get in return? Diseases, cancer, climate change, fumes, endless lists. How about we react the government and industries? What do you get? Public awareness, innovations, regulations, perfect products, right? Not really. Add taxation to the equation. Let's see what we get. Violent explosions, strikes, killed morale, danger. That's dangerous. How about when we remove taxation from the equation? What do we get? Diseases, cancer, climate change. Wait, I thought this was a different kind of equation, so I was to get a different answer. But this reaction gives the same products again. I remember one of the old adage from Adolf Hitler. He once said that say no to pity and act brutal. This is the voice of a sadist, but today this is the voice of an opportunist. Taxes may seem a bit brutal to us, but in the end, they get the job done. And to my first point, revenue collected from environment taxes can be successfully directed into investments and in measures that will boost the competitiveness of domestic producers. A very good example, when we tax our industries that are polluting the environment, that money that we are going to earn in return, we are going to use it to promote these other industries that have adopted the environmental friendly methods of production. As a result, it will create a healthy competition in our country and also in our economic sector, where we'll see that those who are being taxed, they'll feel the pinch of being taxed, and they'll start to adopt these environmental friendly methods of production, which will lead to a healthy economy in our country. To my second point, climate changes is already having an impact on human population, their way of life, and the economy at large. Areas these days are becoming drier, leading to chronic food insecurity, while floods in the other areas are resulting into natural destruction and deaths. Take a good example. Just the other day, we came across an article from Taifa Leo of Thursday, May 28th, 2015, and it stated that New Delhi in India, a total of 1,118 people lost their lives. This is due to increased temperatures, which raised to around 50 degrees Celsius. This greatly affected the people, the citizens of the country, and we lost such a huge number. And this was contributed by these industries in that place, where they release these fumes that are destructive to the environment. They destroy the ozone layer, and hence the sun rays are there, and we cannot. They end up to destroy and to affect the lives of the people. Lastly, I would say that according to a research carried out by the International Monetary Fund, for example, environmental tax revenue constitute to approximately 3 to 10% of total tax revenue in typical countries. By typical countries, I mean the developed countries.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes for your opening statements.
It has been mentioned that the environment has adverse effects on it, courtesy of the industries at hand, which is quite true. We have cancer, we have heat waves in India, all admissible and quite true, of which we accept. But then, if I was to look at John Ruganda's The Burden, I remember Two Tops, a very good economical endeavor, where if you look at a matchbox, you'll find that you have an average of 35 matchsticks. each 45 millimeters long, but with only one chemical head and 2 frictional surfaces. So if a matchstick were to have 2 chemical heads, then you would be able to light your matchstick once, then reuse it for a second helping, as in light the matchstick, put it back in the box, then take it out for a second helping. Then I looked at it in this manner. Why would you want to walk around with a box half full of ashes? It is a rather cumbersome way of saving, and I liked the book. Today, Two Tops matches are our efforts towards imposing taxes on industries, and the matchbox half full of ashes is the result. So true, as have they said, there is a problem in the environment courtesy of the industries, but then how relative is the brutality that she mentioned onto the industries, the economy, and is it the solution to the environmental problems? On to my first point. Placing taxes based on consequent pollution emission in the environment suggests that the polluters are given a right to emit taxes to or at a near existing emission level. But then, if they're allowed to do this or they're given the right, is it not that they've just been given a VIP ticket to pollute the environment? It doesn't actually solve the question at hand. In looking at the definition of an industry, I look at it as the production of goods and services within an economy. So it widens the scope of my view when I want to look at industries at large and their effect on the environment. I can look at the poverty industry. I can also look at the cultural industry, the information industry. All these industries have imposed high taxes for their adverse effects on the environment, being, as had she stated, the social or physical surrounding that is immediate to a person or a people. Then, how tangible is the effect of this taxation? And equally, when you increase taxes in a society, from what I gather from business, you get an impact incident scenario whereby the manufacturers or the industries in question feel the impact of the tax. Then the incident is propagated to the people. So they suffer at the expense of the taxation of the industry. All in all, production will go down, as a matter of fact. So if it does go down, does the revenue go back to the government, or is the government playing a lose-lose kind of game? Thank you.
Time now for rebuttals. Proposers, you have 3 minutes.
It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is rather because we do not dare that things become difficult. A quote by Senecio. I'll start by his first point. He said that when we introduce this taxation, it will be like a matchbox full, half filled with ashes. Now, studies by Cometra Kenya organization suggest that European Union countries that have adopted the taxation reforms in their countries have increased their competitiveness and efficiency of use of their energy. This can be demonstrated by what the first speaker said. If you tax a company, for example, then another company decides that it does not want to be taxed and starts using environmental friendly methods. The first company will be less competitive than the one that is not being taxed. And you cannot tell me that this will not pinch you to try and use these environmental friendly methods to stop taxation and increase your competitiveness. The mind of a queen is to be feared. I bet you didn't think of this. Africa holds the headquarters of UNEP, precisely Kenya. Now, my principal, she constantly tells me to lead by example. How do you expect to be in the front line in environmental decay, and yet you hold the headquarters of an organization that fights against environmental decay? You still expect the others to fight against environmental decay? No, you have to lead by example. The purpose of imposing these taxes, for example, carbon and energy taxes, is to reduce carbon emission and to increase your energy consumption while not compromising the economic growth. This concept of detaching the two has been called or has been referred to as decoupling. It has been used in European Union countries and has been seen to work. This according to our research carried out by UN data in 2011. Basically what we are saying, and we are used to telling industries not to pollute. Public awareness, it is everywhere. And everybody is complaining about taxes. The same way in your school, you are not happy when you're punished. But how can you tell me that this is not the correct way when developed countries have done this and their economic growth has risen to 75%? Also, an investigation carried out by the UN. Thank you.
Opposition will hear your cross-examination. You have 3 minutes.
My salutation. My name is Glenn Xavier from Utumishi Academy. First of all, I would like to reflect on what my opponent said about the European Union having imposed taxes on the industries. And my question is, what is the tangible effect onto the environment with these taxes? Then one of the opponents said that with these taxes, there's going to be increased revenue to the government. And I hereby come to say that due to a report done by the Economics of Environmental Degradation, it was able to prove that if these taxes are going to be imposed onto the whole world, it's going to raise at least $1 trillion. This is going to have an impact of at least 15% decrease in the tax on the wages and profits. What does this mean? It simply means that there's going to be an increased supply to the industries and to the people. And with increased supply to the people and to the industries, that means that production in these industries is going to increase. And as we know, production is directly proportional to the environmental decay. So it simply means that we're still going to pollute this environment. Moreover, I want to say that the only way that global green taxation may be effective to this country or to the whole world is if we're going to have a world institution that is going to ensure that the set standards are going to be met by at least each country. With this, countries that are going to go against the set standards are going to be punished or penalized, and those that are going to comply are going to be rewarded. And because as at hand, we do not have any Ministry of World Environment, this means that even if these set taxes are going to be imposed, finally at the end of the day, they are going to fade away and we are going to lose the significance of the tax. And if I may add, there is the factor of tax evasion and compensation. If these taxes are going to be introduced, most industries are going to either opt or develop means of evading the taxes or compensating for the cost that is going to be imposed onto them. What do I mean? When the tax is high, the prices are going to be hiked, and this impact is going to be felt onto the consumers. Such an exercise was exercised in the United States, where a tax of $100 per carbon tax, it was imposed as carbon tax. It was imposed in the United States, where it raised the spending of the most poorest families by at least 4%. And to the rich families, it only had an effect of 2%. So what do we mean? We are going to suppress the poor people in the society. And are we working to suppress those who are poor in the society, or to build an economy where each of us is at a reasonable standard of living? Thank you.
M-Pesa is the way to go. We can send and receive money. Safaricom is the best.
Take part in the M Challenge by sending your short song, rap or poem about Safaricom M-Pesa on WhatsApp, and you could win 1,000 shillings in Safaricom airtime.
So the two teams on stage will be responding to the questions the audience has asked them. The proposition has been asked, is it not more prudent for us to spread awareness on environmental issues as opposed to taxing industries? And the opposition has been asked, wouldn't taxing industries be redundant? Would it not create a cycle of taking revenue and then making more industries, and so forth and so on? So we'll let them respond to the questions. Proposer number 3, you have 3 minutes.
I would like to answer a question posed from the audience about public awareness. Public awareness, really? Now, how many of you have Facebook accounts? How many have Twitter accounts? How many are in Instagram? Now, when you log into your Twitter account and you find a hashtag, NEMA providing providing methods to curb environmental decay. And the other hashtag is hashtag Verasidika gets a new tattoo. Which one has more likes? Which one would you double tap? You see, and public awareness is all over. The NEMA have chosen these social media platforms so as to attract most of you. But the thing is, most of us are ignorant. Public awareness is everywhere. How many times have you found a notice written, usikojoe hapa? And what do you see right below that notice? Now, necessity is the mother of invention. What happens when these industries are taxed? They are prompted to be innovative. When they become innovative, they come up with methods that can deal with their environmental waste. Methods such as recycling their waste. For example, they could instill catalytic chambers in their industries which convert gases like sulfur 4 oxide to sulfur and gases like nitrogen 4 oxide to nitrogen. See, when we tax these industries, they come up with methods such as this. On to my next point. The government should use administrative bottlenecks. These administrative bottlenecks makes it cumbersome for these industries to actually, they make it cumbersome for one to own an industry. And once the process of owning an industry becomes cumbersome, you can only imagine that having to go through being taxed due to environmental decay is completely unbearable. Also, most developing countries, like our country, Kenya, settle for cheap instead of investing in quality. For example, our country imports raw materials to make polythene papers. Now, this polythene papers issue is an issue that has been discussed ever since I was conscious of myself. So, you see, the dumping of these polythene papers brings about blockage in our drainage systems, and that leads to the floods in Nairobi and Mombasa. So why don't we decide to invest in quality instead of accepting the cheap industries? To finalize, I would like to end by some words. Remember, the end justifies the means. I was your third speaker, Sharon Karanja. Thank you.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes to respond to the audience.
In response to the question asked by Dan, taxing the industries we put up solves nothing at all. It's a cycle. So yeah, your guess is as good as mine. If we set up industries only to later tax them, solves an estimated percentage of 0.00 of the environmental decay. No matter how green the vision put forward, pro-market environmentalists are saddled with difficult care and case for the defense. They have to explain exactly how a system that has consumed well over half, more than all the resources and energy for the past 50 years and all previous human activities can be made to stabilize and reduce its rate of resource depletion and pollution emission at once. The total economic growth with respect to current and previous trend potentially offsets efficiency with regard to resource depletion and pollution emission, unless the goal of this idea of overtaxing is inclined at definitive elimination of pollutants from the environment, something that is close to impossible. While even with the increased taxes, the same level of pollution enters into the environment. The intended reduction can always be negated, and the more expansory the industry in an economy, the greater the likelihood of this result. Imposing taxes on the industries will lead to the problem of inflation. I define inflation as the general increase in prices. This has an effect as there will be shortage of goods in the market, which will lead to overexploitation of the resources, thereby causing environmental decay. Thank you.
We'll now hear closing statements. Proposers, you have 1 minute.
The world is a dangerous place to live in, not because of the people who are evil, but because of the people who don't do anything about it. Albert Einstein. Imagine your last-born sister experiencing her menstrual cycle before you in class 4. Ouch, painful, right? Imagine your grandmother giving birth. Who will that toddler be? Your aunt? Your cousin? God only knows. Reason, mutation. Why? You're failing to tax the industries. Why? You're too soft. In recent study of fish from more than 280 streams in the US, all the fish studied were found to have high levels of mercury. Do you know what the US government did? It advocated against eating of fish. Take a place where the favorite person in your life loves fish, and you can't stop cooking this fish for them because, after all, the way to a man's heart is through their stomach. Do you prefer adding 50 shillings on top, which has been caused by taxation, or do you prefer stopping eating the fish altogether? It is simple mathematics. Do the sums.
Opposition, you also have 1 minute for your closing submission.
Logos, ethos. Grandmothers giving birth, mutation. I dispute. Biologically, I dispute. We should not waver from the focus being environmental decay. So, yes, we should increase taxes, if I were to agree. But then, what is the tangible effect of it towards salvaging our environment? If I wanted the whole of the world to be swept, I wouldn't buy a big broom. I would ask everyone to sweep their houses. But then, do I have large enough a microphone to sound my demand to all over the world? Ecological Marxism holds that the problem with, or the crisis at hand, which is our environment, is not directly related to our laxity towards punishing those who have caused it, but it is directly related to the fact that there is an insuppressible growth dynamic in the capitalistic world that we live in. So therefore, I look at it this way. There are many other ways in which we could actually limit the environmental decay that is at hand. But I do not think that taxing is it. If we were to maybe structuralize an institution that limits the emission of pollutants into the environment, maybe that way we could solve the problem, but taxing isn't it. Thank you.
Philip, you had so many points, and if I read your points, I know you didn't say them all. Why? You took too long in setting the foundation before getting to your main point. All right. Sometimes just make that attention grabber short and sweet. We call it the KISS principle. Glenn, strong voice, well-researched. There's something I'm hearing not only from your group, but from other teams. Let's look for another word or another phrase instead of what do I mean? All of you, many people are saying, what do I mean? And that makes the opponents come and say, actually, what do you really mean? Alex, yes, with more practice, you can get better. We needed to see a bit of more enthusiasm and passion, but you really tried in your articulation of points. All the best to the two teams.
Nakuru School, yes, and Utumishi Academy. I think you've handled the motion well. I love the level of intelligence and the level of research that has been exhibited. Nakuru, Leah and Cynthia, I just loved your presentation. By the way, Leah, you have a conversational style of speaking, soft-spoken, not in a hurry, and you really articulate your issues well. The same applies to Cynthia. Sharon, of course, you're a good speaker, but some of your arguments, I could not really gather much from your presentation. And I think the third speakers from both sides, talking to Sharon and also talking to Alex. Alex, you're doing a lot of reading. You really need to master your content. At one point, I told Judge Maina, I wish I could be given the notes to read by myself. I'll really enjoy reading the notes because it's as if you did not master the content. So you can see how to improve your presentation. Both teams are good. The first two speakers from each side are awesome. The third speakers, I believe, can do a little bit more to improve their presentations.
The ladies of Nakuru High School, the judges awarded you with 71%. Please give them a hand. As for our reigning champions, Utumishi boys, it seems their winning streak continues. They have 74.3%.
And from all of us here at the Great Debaters Contest, we'd like to thank Safaricom M-Pesa and KBC Channel 1 and urge members of the audience and our viewers back home to follow us on Twitter at Great Debaters EA. I am Austin Yambok.
And I am Mariam Bishar. Keep watching the show for more wonderful debates such as this one.
The Great Debaters Contest was brought to you by Safaricom M-Pesa.